Today on Tips from the Top Floor, we'll find out at what unusual place Susan listens to the show at. Hint, it has to do with water. Nikolaus asks for a primer on manual exposure, and I'll finally review the food challenge. This is Tips from the Top Floor, episode 794 for Thursday, October the 12th, 2017.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, alright, from the top floor.
Hey and welcome, it's Chris Marquardt again with Tips from the Top Floor, the longest running photography show on the planet, coming to you from the Viewfinder Villa right outside the gates of Hanover in Germany. Let's see, I'm sorry, this is me stretching. This is early morning, well, early-ish morning, but early for me. And I have a busy day ahead because I'm preparing for a workshop, and that's preparations in general, like getting all the materials ready and everything. But it's also, well, just simple errands. To go shopping, make sure the Viewfinder Villa is nice and tidy, at least in the spots that people can see. Get snacks and drinks and stuff to make sure that everyone's happy during the workshop. Buy coffee and so on and so forth. And the one thing I have to buy, in addition to all that, is distilled water or demineralized water. Because it's a film photography workshop, and it's not just any film photography workshop. It's a large format photography workshop. We're doing 4x5. And so people will come here for the next 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, to learn what it means to do large format photography, what the big deal is about it. And it's okay. So those of you shooting digital, which I do as well, but sometimes I don't. Large format photography is, first of all, is full of chances to make mistakes. If you shoot large format, you will know that there are like many steps in the process. It's a process thing. You have to learn the process, and the process is, well, just a short version of it. You have to compose, you have to focus, which is a deliberate effort you do on that ground glass. It's you, and it's your responsibility. You have then to meter the light and set the settings on the camera, on the lens, on the shutter to make sure you get the right exposure and the right depth of field with the aperture and everything. You have to insert a film cassette into the camera. You have to check the settings again just to make sure. Then you have to pull the dark slide and cock the shutter, probably in the other order. Then expose the picture, put the dark slide back in. That's very important. If you don't, you ruin the photo, a big photo. And then mark the cassette, because if you don't, there's a good chance you will maybe reuse that cassette. And then I once ended up doing a triple exposure this way, an involuntary triple exposure, which ended up being a nice picture by accident. There's such an error potential. I even have a little book that's one participant of a workshop once gave to me. It's the error book of photography, and it lists all these different errors you can make. Again, a little book from the 1920s, where that kind of photography was kind of the standard for a serious, in air quotes, serious photographers. Now, why on earth would I want to do that? I mean, why would I want to learn a process that I can entirely avoid by using a camera that does that all for me? With an SLR, it doesn't matter film or digital. I mean, you will compose the picture right side up. If you do this on a large format camera, it's upside down, and it makes it harder. You compose the picture right side up. You don't have any film to deal with, or you don't have any advancements of film to deal with. The camera does that for you. If it's digital, it's just the sensor. It has a shutter built in, so you don't need a dark slide to deal with, and so on. There's like a lot of things that could be so much easier if you just stuck with your old way of photography, but which large format photography is even older. But as with any process, if you make it a conscious thing, you will learn something. If you develop, if you develop a deep understanding of that, you will take parts of that knowledge back into your other photography, into your digital photography. You will understand better what happens inside the camera, and that, I guarantee you, will reflect back on your photography. Doing that kind of photography has changed my approach to digital photography, fundamentally changed that approach, which is part of why we wrote the digital the film photography handbook, because it is a different way to look at photography, and it will change and it will improve your digital photography. With large format, you will also learn what tilting and shifting does. And large format photography is pretty much what made me fall in love with the tilt shift lenses. Large format photography is the single reason my favorite lens in the world is the 24mm tilt shift. And then as a bonus, you end up making huge negatives. There's so much information and detail in those. If you've ever seen a 4x5 slide, if you held one in your hand and held it against the sky to look through, that stuff is simply gorgeous. It's so satisfying once you pull one of these out of the developer, out of the process, and hold it in your own hands. This is a huge moment of pride in your own skill and something that you just learned. Anyway, I don't want to bore you any longer. Let's get on with the show.
Hi, Chris. This is Susan in Washington, D.C. Once you asked about where we are when we listen to your program. I listen to it while I'm swimming. I have an MP3 player. I download your program, and lo and behold, I swim for about 45 minutes, get my mile in, and learn a lot. The last show I listened to was the tour of the photographs in your home. I could just visualize it as I stroked lap after lap. Best regards. Bye.
That is so awesome. So, I get, thank you. Thank you, Susan, so much for sending that one in. That one made my day. There's people listen to this show doing errands. They mow the lawn. They walk the dog. They are on the commute, in the car, on the train. But I never heard of someone listening while swimming. That is amazing. I didn't even know there were waterproof earbuds, which I have to admit, water is not really my element. My element is air. But this is amazing. So yeah, anyone else, if you are listening, if you listen to tips from the Top Fly episodes, in general, I want to know where you listen, how you listen. Let me know. Send me a little voicemail to voice@tfttf.com. Just record it with any smartphone voice memo app of your choice. And send it into the TFTTF and the voice@tfttf.com. I'm still blown away by someone listening to this show while swimming. That's amazing.
Hi Chris, this is Nikolaus from Augsburg, Germany. What I'm trying to achieve right now is switching from aperture priority mode, which I used in the past, to manual exposure mode, which I want to use in the future more often. And this seems to me more like a trial and error thing, because sometimes my first shot get right exposed, but then the next shots are way under or overexposed. So my question for you is, how do I learn this? Do I have to do it the trial and error way, or are there any rule of thumbs you could recommend, or any readings you say it's worth reading? That's surely something you have done in the past and you can recommend how to do it. So I really enjoy your podcast and look forward to seeing you next year in Norway. Bye.
Oh yeah, looking forward to Norway next year. That's going to be awesome. Anyway, Nikolaus, you ask a question that comes up quite a lot here. I have in the past tried to explain that. Let's start with, okay, you're shooting in automatic mode, and learning manual, I admit, feels like hit or miss sometimes. Now, there are multiple ways to explain things, and me as a teacher, I've tried to do it in different ways. And in the past, I've sometimes gone for like deep understanding of it. And then there's another way to teach something, and that is to provide a cookbook approach and give people Just some quick success and motivation, which in turn will make them want to find out. So that's what I'm trying here. I'll go for that second one this time. So here is your first steps into manual exposure. Follow along. Warning, watch out. I will tell you to change some settings on your camera. If after this lesson you want to get your camera back to where it was, make sure to take a note of the original settings as you change them. Number 1. Change your camera to manual mode. On most cameras, that's a round dial on the top where you also set your aperture priority or shutter priority mode. Number 2. Set your camera to a fixed ISO. Having your camera on auto ISO defeats the purpose of shooting manual. In fact, if it's on auto ISO, it's on auto, not in manual. Number 3. Here are some starting points for your exposure settings. If you're indoors, set the ISO to 1600. If you're outdoors, set it to 200. Set the aperture to f4 and your shutter speed to 100th of a second. Number 4. Set your camera's focus point to the center one and set its metering mode to spot metering. This will make sure the camera meters off of only the center portion of the picture and ignores everything else. The size of that spot depends on your camera. Consult your camera manual for more details. Number 5. While looking through the viewfinder, point that center focus point of your camera to something that is neither bright nor dark, something somewhere in the middle in terms of brightness. Number 6. While you're looking at that medium bright spot through the viewfinder, half press the shutter button of your camera. This will turn on your camera's meter and it should show you a little scale in the viewfinder. This is your exposure scale. It has 0 in the middle and extends to the left and the right to something around -3 to +3. The specifics for your camera might vary slightly. On most cameras, you should also see a triangular indicator that points to somewhere on that scale. That is your exposure. Number 7. While still pointing the camera to that medium bright part of your scene, change the shutter speed until that indicator points to 0 on the middle of that scale. If the scale disappears, your camera's meter has turned itself off. Just half press the shutter to enable it again. You're pretty much done at this point. You have just set the exposure for this specific light situation. Now step back and take a photo of that area you pointed your spot meter at. Your exposure should be well in the ballpark. And as long as the light doesn't change, you can keep shooting at that setting. And that was a quick way to set your camera up for your first steps into manual exposure. And of course, you can go as deep as you like and refine this to a science, but this is pretty much how you get started. Hey, just a tiny quick reminder, this episode does not have a sponsor, so I pretty much depend on your support. And there are a lot of ways that you can help keep Tips from the Top Floor on the air. The simplest one is to spread the word and to leave a review on iTunes. That's free, that's important because people need to find out, and these things will help new listeners discover the show. And then there's Auphonic, which is it's an amazing audio processing service that each of these episodes runs through, and it makes them sound better, so you have a better experience. But it's not free. I will have to buy audio processing time for that, and you can, for example, help by donating some Auphonic processing time. Or how about becoming a TFTTF supporter on Patreon? That Patreon is great. You will get early access to new episodes, and I'm super grateful for all you wonderful supporters. Starts at $1 per episode, but and it's voluntary, of course, but yeah, it really helps. I've put together a page with links to all the ways to support the show. It's at tfttf.com/support. That's tfttf.com/support. Thanks all. You're awesome. By the way, you know who had a birthday? Not me. No. Well, I have one every year, but not recently. No, Release Pixie, Matt Refsintar Armstead, the man behind getting the show out to you. It was his birthday just a few days ago, and he's mostly invisible behind the scenes, but there's a very good chance that almost every single episode you listen to here has gone through his hands first. He helps make sure you get the episodes on your podcast clients, and he also does the bi-monthly Slack challenges. So happy birthday, buddy. Thanks for all your help. This wouldn't be half as fun without you. Yeah. Applause, applause, applause. And speaking of the Slack challenge, yep, it's time to review. Here's finally the review of the food challenge. I know you've all been waiting. Let's see. I've done what I do every 2 months when one of these challenges comes to an end. I choose 3 entries and I review them here on the show. If you wanna look along, if you wanna look at the pictures while I talk about them, the links are in the show notes. You will have to, for 2 of them, one is on Flickr, but 2 of them are on the Slack. So you'll have to be on the Slack to see them. It's kind of this, again, the Slack is kind of this home for the TFTTF community. And yeah, you have to be on the Slack, but it's easy to get on there. I'll give you hints on that later. Let's look at 3 pictures. It was a tough choice. Great stuff you guys submitted. David Mann, 2 apples and a plank. It's one of those photos that just works. It's literally 2 apples on a wooden plank. And the apples are beautiful, straight from the tree. One being really red, the other being orangey red with some green leaves on it. So you have a beautiful contrast color there between the warm tones and the green that complements the color of the apple just fine. And then they sit on a wooden plank. And that wood plank it's been outside for a long time. It's weathered. It's kind of almost grayish now. It doesn't have the juicy brownish tones anymore, and that makes for a perfect place to set those apples down on, because, well, apple is a natural thing, wood is a natural thing, apples and trees and wood, it all kind of goes together. But at the same time, that plank under the apples is just a very subdued color, so it kind of retreats in the background. It's just there to be the ground which the subjects sit on, and that is a beautiful combination. I also like the diagonal of how you composed it, David. So great stuff. Second one is by Aaron Pinisov. Hope I pronounced that well. Called Holiday Dinner, and I like this. It's a photo of a holiday dinner for all the family around a table for 10 people roughly, and they are eating and they're having fun and they're chatting, and it's a long exposure, several seconds, because you see the table is just the table is the table as it should be, but then all the people are blurred and they are, they're moving, they're having fun. You don't see the faces because everything is blurred, but it just shows that well, there's a family, they have like a tradition to do their holiday dinner, but they are not static. They move and they have fun. They enjoy themselves while eating, and that picture works. It works in that respect. So great stuff there. And then last but not least, Paul Adams, Fudge. When I looked through those pictures on the Slack challenge channel, it was one of those photos that didn't stick out much. It is from the thumbnail. I mean, that's how I see those pictures first, and that's how many people nowadays see pictures first, on a thumbnail. And that picture didn't really work on a thumbnail for me. It was like, oh, that's way too busy, and it just didn't stick out in any interesting way. Some others did more. But of course, I open all the pictures and have a closer look, and then that picture just kind of worked for me when I looked at it in a bigger size. And the reason is, okay, so first of all, what do we see? We see some sort of a market, and then there's this one cart stand kind of thing that they sell fudge, and there are people standing around, and then there's a there's a lady next to that stand taking a photo. So it's a photo of a photographer. It's not 100% clear what the subject is because of, well, there's really a lot going on in this photo. The background is very bright and a bit distracting, but that doesn't really matter to me. What I like about this picture is the colors, because on the top you see light bulbs, and I think it's LED bulbs, but it doesn't matter. They produce a very warm light, a very warm and pleasant light. And this market is under some roof, but it's half outside, so the rest of the photo is much cooler. The light, the color temperature in the rest of the photo it's just an outside color temperature, and the color temperature around the fudge stand, especially on top of it, and the people under it are lit by this warm light. And this is one of those mixed light situations that on some silly blogs you read that, avoid them at all costs. You don't want mixed light situations. No, this is a must. This is a mixed light situation that does the job, because it shows you the differences between this inside almost incandescent light and the outside light, which is cooler. And then that stand having a warmer light is pretty much more inviting because of that. So the guy who runs the stand is doing a good job putting warm light sources in there, because it makes it very nice and appealing, especially if you're outside and it might be a bit cold, and then that gives you that warm feeling, and it helps sell. It helps sell for sure. Reminds me of a market in New York, Chelsea Market, which has this one big fish store. If you've been to New York, there's a chance you might have seen this. It's right under the Highline Park, and it's this big, beautiful food market. And there's this one, I think it's an Italian grocery store in there. They have lots of spaghetti and stuff, or was it Asian? I'm not sure, but it has this cool, almost like neon light. No, it's not neon. It's fluorescent lights that flood the entire thing with a lot of light, but it's cold and it doesn't really work. And then a few steps further is a fish market, and they have done such an amazing job with their lighting. They have incandescent lights. I think it's halogen lights. At least last time I was there, that's what they had. And it's lighting that fish from different angles, and you just look at it and it looks so appetizing and it looks so inviting. So anyway, what a tangent. Paul, good job with that photo. I like it because of the way you have the different mixed lights in there. Where's for me? All right. If you want to participate in the Slack challenge, in the next one, which is up right now, the way this works is that you take a photo along the rules of the challenge, which are set by Matt. You should take a new photo. Don't just pull one out from your catalog. This is an opportunity to practice and learn, and that's what we should take it as. And then upload it to the Slack challenge channel, or link it to there if you have it somewhere else. And at the end of the challenge, I will select 3 entries that I will discuss here on the show. And that's pretty much the only thing you can win. There are no other prizes or anything. But just the spirit of the Slack challenge is to get off your butt, get off the sofa and out to do photography. And then every 2 months, Matt will come up with a new challenge, and then he will create a new channel for that challenge. And if you want to participate, you will need to be on the TFTTF Slack, which is a free thing. It's easy to get on. It's the community, as I said, it's the home for the community to discuss all sorts of things, including doing the challenges. To get on the Slack, if you're not on there yet, go to tfttf.com/yslack, tfttf.com/WHYSLACK. And then once you're on board, join the new challenge channel.
Hello, everyone. Rapstar the Release Pixie here, and it's time for another Slack challenge. The September challenge for 2017 wrapped up. We had 19 different entries for the food challenge. And so we're going to set a new challenge, and it's going to be a little different. We're going to go with something less restrictive. So this challenge, the topic is bokeh, which is the out of focus part of a photo. So I want you to go out and take a photo, a new one, with bokeh as the topic. So post your best stuff up. The new channel is live on the Slack as of a few minutes ago. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody's entries. And maybe we can get Chris to take a few minutes and explain how to get bokeh and what causes it in photos. And additionally, soon he will hopefully go through the September challenge entries and pick a couple and feature them on the show. Until that time, this is Matt, Rapstar the Release Pixie, saying happy shooting.
Happy shooting, Matt. So here you have it. The new Slack challenge is bokeh. Bokeh, which is a Japanese word that has several meanings. Bokeh, B-O-K-E-H. In Japanese, it doesn't have the H. It's just bokeh. But then I think most people in the world would pronounce it the wrong way. So bokeh, B-O-K-E-H. It's for the purpose of photography. The meaning of bokeh is roughly translated to fuzzy. And that's the out of focus background in an image. And to get a lot of bokeh, just a reminder, the little technical reminder, wide open aperture gives you more bokeh, which means more less depth of field, more shallow depth of field, which creates the bokeh. You can play with the apertures, different sizes of apertures, also different shapes of apertures will create different bokeh. There's like people who cut out little star shapes or heart shapes and hold them straight in front of the lens to shoot through, which if you have point light sources will then has a chance to turn that bokeh into those shapes upside down, which is fun thing to play with. Then there is the distance to your subject that will influence the background. So if you have a camera that has trouble getting decent bokeh, and that has to do with the sensor size, then you get closer. The other thing is the focal length. If you zoom in, then you will get more bokeh. So there are several ways to influence that. But the challenge, as I interpret it, you can interpret it in any way you like, but as I interpret it, it's not just about shooting a photo that has an out of focus background. That would be too easy. I think I would suggest to come up with like an interesting bokeh, something that is fun looking at, something that is unusual, or something that, just makes you look again. That will certainly help me make a choice among the challenge photos. So go out, take photos, participate in the Slack challenge. It's fun, it's great. And again, in 2 months, I will pick 3 photos and I will discuss them here on the show. All right, that was it for this episode. Thanks again, everyone who participated in the last Slack challenge. There's a new one up right now, and it's the November 2017 challenge. Topic is bokeh, and if you want to participate, go to tfttf.com/yslack. If you want to send a question to the show, just speak it into the voice memo app of your choice and send it to voice@tfttf.com. That's voice@tfttf.com. And thanks again to all the amazing supporters. You are making all the difference. Find out more at tfttf.com/support. Music for the show by Jeff Smith, silent partner Kevin MacLeod, and Hans-Peter Kagrud Publishing, and Slack challenges by Release Pixie, Matt, Refsitar Armstead. Slack imitations by Chief Invitation Officer, CIO Russ. My name is Chris Marquardt. Follow me on Facebook and on Twitter at Chris Marquardt, Chris MARQUARDT. And of course, go out and take amazing photos. Be nice to each other. And happy shooting.